Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to the show, the Craig and Jane Psychic Show Live.
Yes, hello everybody. I am alive, Craig.
And we're going to be talking tonight about, well, we always try to do something kind of that's current if we can. So, the top of the show, we're going to talk about Lisa Marie Presley, and she recently died. I think, was it today she died or yesterday?
She died last night of a cardiac arrest.
And I think she was 54 years old.
Yes.
Obviously the...
and I think, first of all, Craig, we ought to say condolences to the family and her children. Yeah,
and we're going to obviously say condolences on this. And she was the daughter of Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley. And we thought we'd take a kind of a spiritual look at that. And we'll talk about Elvis and some of the sightings of Elvis in the past, his spirit and things like that. Some of the thoughts that he had about life after death, and any questions that you guys might have. And I'll repeat this in a minute, but when you ask a question on screen, you know, you can put if you're on live with us, you can put a question in, put a large capital Q and then your question, and then we can identify immediately which are the questions and pull them out. And know that this is what's chit chat and what's an actual question. So have some questions and thoughts, and you know, please contribute with facts and things like that as we go through it, and any thoughts you have when we go through this. So we'll just say a few hellos first, eh, Jane?
Yep. We got a faithful fashion on it.
From Baltimore.
From Baltimore. That's very nice.
Nice you to come on board.
Belinda, good evening, both of you. Good evening, Belinda. Jamie Baby Cardo, hello to you both. Hello.
Hello, Jamie Baby Cardo. Yes, we know you.
And Jeannie, hello from Exeter, California.
Exeter, California. We get Cornwall here, but we don't get it down that way, do we? And from California side, right? And Serge Hugerveen. Greetings from the lowlands. I presume the lowlands is where? Holland lowlands?
Yes,
I've just come back from Norfolk. That's the lowlands over here. Well, thanks for joining us again. If you're here for the first time, this is where Jane and I go live. We talk about all things paranormal. We'll open the questions up as we move along and move into any topics that interest you. But the first one, we were going to talk a little bit about Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of Priscilla, of course, and she married Michael Jackson.
She had 4 husbands, 4 children, and she lost her son, who committed suicide. I believe he shot himself.
Yeah, Benjamin, his name was.
Ben. And so she had twins, and then she's got an older daughter, aged 33, and 2 twins, and she actually stood to inherit £100 million from her late father's estate, Graceland's.
Yeah, she did inherit Graceland's, didn't she? She sold 85% of it, I believe.
And I believe it's kept as a monument. I have had people that have come to me that have actually been there, and they say there's a big industrial estate behind it.
Yeah, I saw some footage of it. It all looks nice when you get it in the right camera angle, isn't it? But then there's a big industrial estate on the side with a big car lot.
Elvis devotees would like to be there where the great man, the king himself, had been, so I can understand that.
Yeah, and so he lost her recently. Of course, it makes us think about Elvis a lot. Of course, in my mind. I mean, Elvis, I think, was a very interesting person, someone that was pulled out by destiny in some respects.
Well, he came from a very poor background, and I believe he got into music because where he was, they did have people from a different culture, terrific gospel singers, and he got really into that. And his father and his mother, he was very close to. And as I say, it got him out of that situation so he could look after his mother and his father, Vernon, and his mother. But I believe Elvis Presley was one of a twin.
He was. And they say that the twin haunts his birthplace at Aleppo.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and the twin died there. And he was always told, Elvis was told as a child, that you're living now for 2, which must be a pretty weird thing, that you're living your life and you're also living the life of your brother. You know, he quoted that apparently. I've got to live the life for 2. And I suppose he did live almost a double life in that he was twice the energy of any normal person, wasn't he?
Well, I don't think there'll ever be another Elvis Presley, because he was really unique. And though we have tribute Elvis Presleys from Chinese people mimicking Elvis Presley, and that his music still lives on, and because they had one daughter, Priscilla and Elvis, between them, Lisa Marie, who was a pretty little girl, I believe, with blonde hair, and I believe she must have been very young, I suppose about 6 or 9 when her father passed into spirit. So the connection was quite strong.
So Elvis died, I think, in August 1977.
Right.
So
Would he be in his 80s now, wouldn't he?
he'd be 80-something,
85.
yeah, 80-something now.
But also, she's got Lisa Marie as a half-brother, because her mother did have a relationship, I think, with somebody that was into karate and judo. So she's got a half-brother as well,
yeah,
who's in
I
music.
know that, I was reading that Priscilla Presley believes, she's quoted quite a few times in the press, there's quite a lot of it out there actually on the internet, that she really believes that Elvis was around her. Really believed that the spirit of Elvis Presley was quite often around when she was at home, and particularly when she was in Gracelands. And there's been a lot of sightings of Elvis's ghost in Gracelands, I believe. And even when she was doing some work with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, they all felt that Elvis was physically there with them, you know.
And I believe Lisa Marie was, though she did have drug abuse and went into rehab, I believe, about 5 times because she was very attracted to alcohol. But then this girl, you've got to understand, has lived in the public eye, been married 4 times. One was to Nicolas Cage, I believe, that had a thing about Elvis Presley, and then Michael Jackson, because I hope she had a lot of compassion. She felt sorry for Michael Jackson, though the marriage only lasts 2 years. And I believe her husband, her husband she divorced, and she lived with him. And he found her actually in that room where she was having a cardiac arrest. And I read on the news that they gave her adrenaline, which starts the heart rate going, and they try to resuscitate her.
She was looking pretty bad at the Golden Globe Awards, because she was there and people were commenting that she looked a bit like a ghost there, actually.
Well, I think a lot of her problem was when she lost her son. How does a mother get over that grieving process when you've lost a child? You don't. And for her, she must still have been grieving. That's why, for her, though she had the twins and she had her elder daughter, that it kept her going.
Yeah.
But grief can bring people strokes, high blood pressure and that, and it can affect many people. It doesn't matter how famous you are. Priscilla
Presley apparently too was very deeply hurt, because that would have been her grandchild. And again, she says that she often felt Ben's spirit around her a lot of the time.
Well, I'm sure you do. It's got people you love. Love never dies, does it?
Because whatever status we get in life, whatever we achieve, whether we achieve fame or we achieve wealth or any form of status in the world, ultimately the great leveler is always death, isn't it? For even the greatest of personalities in the world.
What I found most interesting, she died at age 54. If you add the 5 and the 4, it symbolises 9, which means completion in life. So perhaps her karma had been completed in this life, Craig.
Possibly. She must have done, because she was an Aquarius, and us Aquarians are
she
here
was
for
an
the
Aquarian,
last time.
yes. But she did have a lot of Piscean in her chart as well.
Of Leo, I think.
No, she had Piscean because she was born in between like Aquarius and February, so she would have had Piscean in her chart.
Yeah, so, and I'm interested because Elvis himself, in some respects,
he was a Capricorn, Elvis Presley.
He was a Capricorn, yeah. And he had a lot of strange intuitive feelings. I think sometimes when people get into a sense where their life is being kind of driven by a destiny, you get feelings that something special's been happening. You quite often take a lot of attention to omens and things like that. And I remember when I wrote a book about cloud reading, or about that type of thing, it was part in one of my books about cloud reading, and I quoted Elvis Presley in there. I still got a cough from that Christmas. And he saw in the clouds Joseph Stalin. And they stopped the car and he said, look at that. He was with his hairdresser. And they were saying, look at that, Joseph. And then it all changed and it became a picture of Jesus. And he took it as a kind of an omen. And I read in one instance that he thought this was an omen of his death to come. You know, he saw it as some... And also a feeling that he'd kind of been chosen out by destiny to do something special.
Well, he's, as I say, he came from quite religious background because he was brought up in a very poor area where you had people going to the gospel church and things like that. So he did have quite a spiritual element. And I think going towards the end of his life, he was worked really hard by that Colonel Saunders. No, not you. I call the chicken man.
Parker, wasn't it?
Yeah, Parker. I call him Saunders, like the chicken man.
I had a Colonel Saunders last night. It's horrible.
And you know, and I think he knew he was like on a Ferris wheel, really, and everything. And I also read that he had a housekeeper that used to make him peanut butter sandwiches with
deep
jam
fried.
And deep fried. Well, that's fattening.
Sounds a good idea.
Yeah, but I think that was because it was like an outlet. And like, can you imagine someone working, you've got to perform all the time? Because going towards the end of his life,
I think he had heart control freak.
He had heart trouble as well, because going towards the end of his life, he gained a lot of weight, didn't he? So it might be in the genetics going back from his ancestors as well.
I picked up a few ghost sightings of him that I found out about. Apparently in Las Vegas, there's what is now the Hilton there. There was this huge hotel, which was the biggest casino in its time in Las Vegas. And he played there, I can't remember how many times on the trot, 600 times or something in a row he played. You imagine doing that amount of work you do.
Was that at MGM?
No, it's called the International Hotel. I don't know if it's still standing even. I'm not sure which one it was. But apparently there's outside, some of it was torn down or something. And there used to be a point where his red Cadillac used to be parked. And they still see that red Cadillac superimposed on the new building. So it was like it's replaying. It's not, the building's gone, but where the Cadillac was
Sounds
parked,
a bit like Total Recall.
Yeah, sort of thing. So I thought that was quite. So I thought that was quite a weird one, which people keep saying that he's seen there. And one of his friends called Wayne Newton. He used to do a performance. I think he must have done an Elvis performance or something. But he did a performance or some sort. And he was at the balcony of I think it must have still been at the International Hotel. And they cleared the top row of the balcony because they don't, if they're only going to fill the bottom floor, they clear the top floor so that the artist is aware that it's clear, And he saw Elvis walking around there, and there's interviews out there with him where he absolutely swears that he saw Elvis's spirit there. And Elvis looked up and smiled at him, and he took it as a sign that Elvis felt it was all right him doing the show there, because it was always Elvis's spot, of course.
Probably that's
so that
true.
was quite interesting.
But do you know that Elvis Presley actually, aeroplane touched down in London, the UK, but he never got off that plane because there was all a big hoo-ha and everything through the Colonel Parker.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, there's so many.
Yeah, there's so many things.
I was reading about Gracelands too. Apparently Gracelands, I googled all this, so this is why I know this. I got
but I'm more knowledgeable.
Yeah, you probably are actually with this type of thing. Apparently in 1980, around in the 1980s sometimes, there was a tour going around Gracelands.
Yeah.
And all the people came back talking about to the box office or wherever the entrance and said, "Oh, we loved your Elvis impersonator. We thought it was fabulous. He's fabulous, your Elvis impersonator." And the whole crowd had seen the Elvis impersonator, but there was no Elvis impersonator on the site. This is quite a famous story, actually.
Right.
So all those people had seen the Elvis impersonator, and there was no Elvis impersonator.
And what
there.
did he say to them, Craig? Ha.
Yeah, well, he might have done, but he was obviously doing a show of some sort from the spirit.
So they've got a museum
something
in
up.
Graceland. There's a museum with all Elvis's clothes, and that probably was a visitation from him.
I mean, again, Priscilla Presley says that that's where she felt he was closest. And there's another room there called the Jungle Room.
Oh yes, I know. Yes,
and they've got a piano there, and often people will hear Elvis Presley in there, and they say they hear it from upstairs, and they empty the upstairs of the building. Nobody's allowed to go up there when the guests are going around, and they quite often hear the sound of Elvis from upstairs, but there's nobody upstairs, so there's nobody could be playing.
So it's a residue of his energy.
So it could be like residual energy. Yeah.
But I believe he also had televisions which were like very 70s or 60s in that room downstairs, because it would be like what they would call like a games room and everything. What the Americans
In fact, he's
have.
buried there, isn't he, in the meditation gardens?
And well, his body's laid to rest in the grounds, and also his father and his mother.
Yeah. So, some interesting facts there. He met a number of psychics in his time. I mean, Uri Geller he got on with, apparently. Uri Geller says he met him in the 70s.
Oh, really?
And I had a look about the number of psychics out there, actually, who have supposedly had Elvis come through. And I haven't seen anything that at all that I would say sounds to me evidential.
Yeah.
Because the problem with this type of thing is, and we're probably going to get it soon with Lisa Marie Presley, people say, oh, I've got Elvis, I'm in touch with Elvis. But as we say, when you do mediumship, you have to have a recipient with you who knew the person well, that you can give facts to that nobody else knows.
Yeah. That's right.
As we explained on all the stuff we did with the Princess Diana seances, you can't just pull it out the blue.
Not only that,
you can't confirm
it's a bit too soon for Lisa Marie to come through, because when they go to the spirit realm, there's a resting process that they have to go through. And it wouldn't surprise me if Elvis, her grandfather, her grandmother, and her son came for her. So, though she was in the bedroom where they found her and they tried to resuscitate her and take her to the hospital, she would have been aware of loved ones.
And actually, when you make a connection with anybody in the spirit world, you have to give, like I say, little things that nobody could possibly know. Things that would be very personal between the recipient of the message and the spirit person giving that message. Right. And that's why people say, oh, you mediums, you say such silly things sometimes. You say they had a blue teddy bear in the coffin or something. And you say, well, actually, only that person knew that was in there. So that for them is proof. And it might sound trite and trivial, but the important thing is that for that person is the proof. Because you can look so much up on anybody nowadays. I mean, you could do quite a good profile of someone just looking at Facebooks and things. And this is the danger now, And that's why when you're doing mediumship and things for people, it's all little things that nobody could possibly know that are so important, particularly nowadays when so much of our information is given away.
So, any of you Elvis fans or that, would you like to contribute now?
Yeah, and look, any questions you might have, and also if you've been to Graceland, have you been to any of these places? Have you been to his birthplace or anything like that? Let's have some of your thoughts.
Right, now Terry says, and I think we've just covered that, was Elvis and her son there to greet her when she passed over? I'm sure they would have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you love somebody, it doesn't just finish when somebody passes in the higher realms, because I call spirit world heaven, of course, and she'd have been surrounded for love. But I mean, it must be for the mother dreadful going through slow motion and the children, because you don't expect your children to go before you. I mean, she's still young at 54, and I think Priscilla's 77. So it must have been terrible. They must be terribly in shock. But the good thing is that girl's at peace now.
And I think it's always the amount of readings and things we've done for people with mediumship, the spirit world always telling us that it's their loved ones that come for you when you pass over. There's nothing to fear. You're never alone. You always cross over. You're always taken over by the people you love, because it's a bridge of love that's built between the two worlds.
That's right.
And like all the things, how much famous we are and the rest of it, at the end of the day, what's important to us all is that person-to-person love in this world, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's no titles, kings or queens or prime minister. You're all as one when you go over.
Near-death experiences, people that have had near-death experiences have been resuscitated. Same type of issues come up. I saw my gran come for me, I saw my husband come for me, and things like that. This is what happens. And I think we should all be reassured that, at death, we don't go into the valley of death alone. There is a guiding forces with us.
Yes. Next question.
Divine and
agility bits. Elvis was very troubled when he was alive. When someone passes, do they recover from mental problems as well as physical? Well, they do. As I say, they go to a special place, and your physical body is left behind here in the material world. And so, if you were very unhappy in that, you have to get used to the conditions and everything. So all your worries you're leaving behind, and you're with people that you love. So
Also, I had
I didn't know that Elvis had mental conditions. I'd say it was the drugs with his condition.
Yeah, I suspect he had a lot of emotional issues and problems. I mean, just living that life is difficult, you know. I mean, we see it now with the royal families and talk and things. I mean, it's very hard to live at that level of people's attention. I know from personal experience, again through messages that come through, not just the work that Jane and I do for others, but sometimes messages we've been given by other good mediums. I mean, I remember my friend went to the spirit side. He set himself on fire, and he's come through a number of times, quite often saying about how he's all right. And he explains that I went up in flames because he burnt himself to death, crazy.
He was
But
schizophrenic.
He had schizophrenia in the end, but he took LSD too much, basically,
Yeah.
as Elvis took LSD, actually, strangely enough.
How do you know that?
He did. He took it.
I thought he took amphetamines because he was working at such a pace, performing every night, and then sleeping all in the daytime. And I felt really going towards the end that he gave up on lots of ways, because it was like a hamster on a Ferris wheel going round and round, a performing monkey. Because I think he took cocaine, because I tell you why, because I watched on YouTube once, he was singing, and I heard his voice very clear, said, "Stuff it up your nose," like that, and laughing. I heard it.
Oh, there's lots of references to things in lots and lots of songs out there to things like that. Well, thanks for putting the cues. This is good, because now Matt can spot your questions.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen to Priscilla? Will she survive? Well, it's very hard, isn't it, for anybody when you've lost a loved one. She has to survive, doesn't she, for those grandchildren, because she's got to be the guardian angel and protector, and it's very, very hard for the children. You know, her heart must be ripped out in 1,000 pieces. I mean, how do you get over losing a child, an only child at that?
The problem you have, I think, when you're so much in the public eye is grief in the public eye is a very hard thing to do, because the press are intrusive on everybody who is in the public eye. We see it, it's all been in the news, hasn't it, recently, with all the royal stuff and things. And you have very little private life. I mean, the number of people, when we've met quite a lot of well-known and famous people in our time, and their private life is very little. I mean, even when they get, when they're on shows and things, there's always an entourage around them. It's like they're constantly protected by this entourage of people, but at the same time, you can't nip down the road and do something, or pop down the pub or anything. You can't do anything like that. And grief, which requires privacy sometimes, and it requires closeness of family and closeness of friends. And I think it must be a very lonely world trying to deal with grief when you're so much in the public eye, for anybody that's there's one of the terrible costs of fame, I think.
Right, so next question. Ginger tea. I could do with a ginger tea. I have visited Graceland, beautiful house and so many memories. I believe that Graceland isn't so busy as people think, because I can remember I had a man that was a traveller, a very sweet man, that came to watch me at Camberley Spiritualist Church, and I'm not kidding you not. I thought it was the king himself in the audience, because he looked so much like him with grey hair. Anyway, he came up to me afterwards. I said, "I don't want to be rude, sir," I said, "but don't you look like Elvis Presley?" And he said, "Honey, I'm home," because I burst out laughing. And he had a good sense of humour, and he had recently lost his wife. So it's all coincidence how things happen, doesn't it?
I believe Graceland doesn't feel as big as it.
No.
People say it's not as big as you expect as well. A bit overlooked.
But don't they have gates that before you enter it, it's got the guitar and music notes? I mean, it must be a fabulous place to go if there's never be another Elvis Presley, will there?
Yeah, it is haunted, Vera. I mentioned that earlier on. I don't know if you came in at the beginning. I was saying about that I was talked about that tour of people where they saw the Elvis impersonator, who was not an Elvis impersonator. This whole group of people saw Elvis there simultaneously, and that's interesting when a whole group of people, because then it's not, is this a mass hypnosis or mass fantasy? I mean, everybody witnessing it once.
No. He probably did come back to show his fans.
Yeah, they had a similar group that saw in Versailles a weird thing like that happened, where a whole group of people saw the people of Versailles, and they thought there was a costume drama being staged, and there was no such thing going on. There was nothing going on like that. And the jungle room, as they hear the singing and things like that. Do you know any other stories? I mean, if any of you know any other bits and interesting, intriguing little snippets about the story, please put them in the comments. And if you've got a question, put a Q, and then we can always pick up on the questions quickly.
And I think most important, Craig, is that we could do with a few more patrons.
Indeed, yes. I'll do a patron sale. If you're enjoying this show, do please become a patron. And don't just keep listening to it each week. Please have a look in the description below. And click that link to become a patron. Because if you become a patron, you can give us a little bit of money each month. That means we can keep the studio going, because it's quite expensive here. It's in Winchester, so it's an expensive location. Everything round the south of England is expensive and hard to find now. So we need funds to keep it going. And we're trying to get more funds so that we can get a centre together. This has been our hope. There's going to be some interesting things happening in the months ahead where I'm trying to do something which you'll see one day about try to raise some money for a centre in a big sort of public way, which I can't tell you about at the moment.
Well, don't then, Craig.
No, but I can hint at it because it was something that you might find interesting in times to come. We're doing our bit. We want to make something really special. We want to do something that is really a big thing. But we also need the funds for this as well. So even a small amount helps us to keep it all going.
I would prefer if it was a large amount.
A large amount would be particularly helpful.
So Mr. Rothschild,
yes,
if you're listening, or Rockefeller, but it's because the work we're trying to do is because in the 21st century we're trying to get a message out there and trying to help people in the world, and we are genuine what we do.
Yeah, and if you have a look on the Patreon pages, I keep in touch with people as much as I can. You can always drop me messages there, and we sort of have a comment section and things, and lots going on. And you can even go to the website, you can see it in the top of the screen just above me somewhere here, where psychics.co.uk, where we've got the contact page if you wanted to give a bigger donation. Just have a word with me. There you go. Thank you very much. And thank you for all those. We've been seeing the names come up as a few of them who have been helping us so much to make everything happen.
Right, next question.
So don't forget, put a big capital Q in front of your questions and we can spot which are the questions and which are just comments.
Right, Teresa, can dreams foretell the future? Well, sometimes people might feel they can tell the future through dreams, or sometimes you've got somebody from the other side is trying to connect in your subconscious mind through dreams to try to give you things or warnings and that. All things are possible.
Well, I'm definitely 100% sure dreams can tell the future. I mean, I've done a lot of research in my life. I've written 7 books in multiple languages on dreams. One of them was a bestseller. So there we go, aren't I clever? But I've done a lot of research, and the more you, I mean, both in your own personal life as well, the more you look at it, the more you understand that very, very often dreams have a sort of symbolism, yeah, and allegories, but certain dreams have a certain quality to them that are different to other dreams. And I've always found the dreams that tell the future are often the ones that seem almost banal, almost uninteresting, almost like there's no emotion in it. It's the ones, certainly in my life, the ones that you get a glimpse of something that's going to happen are kind of what I would call matter-of-fact dreams. And they are fascinating. And they don't always come 100% true, but they get very close to being.
I think the best thing to do is write your dreams down and date them, because Craig used to have a great big volume of dreams he had and kept under the bed. So I think it's very, very good if you write your dreams down and then you can refer to them in the future. Yeah,
I kept a dream diary for years and years and years, and it's amazing. When you look back, you think, my God, that happened exactly. And that was 10 years ago, but it happened to the letter, you know.
This one's for you, Craig.
Oh, that's
Kimberly.
nice. I purchased your book, Psychic School. There in Psychic School there in the holidays. Can you please recommend me another book I can purchase about mediumship? Well, yeah, my book, my Psychic School, yeah, good. Thank you for that one. I also brought a book out called The Psychic Handbook, but Psychic School's the best of my books. Now, development of mediumship, there's not many good. There's an awful lot of poor books out there on mediumship, I've got to say. I would suggest, if you want to learn about mediumship, look to some of the original spiritualist
That's
books. The ones that I like are, the first book I ever read on it when I was first starting out was by Ivy Northage, called The Mechanics of Mediumship.
Very good.
Only a tiny little thin volume.
Very good.
And yet it was so sensible. Also, if you look at, I didn't author it, but I wrote the introduction to Vi Kipling's book about mediumship, which you can also see on, you go and have a look at the page, dong, up there, psychics.co.uk. On the website there's a link to that one, which is the manuals of what we used to teach mediumship online, and we made a sort of a course, and that course has now been put into a book form. And I'm also teaching mediumship now for those that want to pick up on mentoring. Have a look on the website as well. I'm doing a special thing where people can connect with me once every 2 weeks, and we do a mentoring service, which can be either for spiritual work or general spiritual help, or for those that want to develop mediumship. And I'm quite pleased with the way that's going, and that's going to become a much bigger part of the private work I do.
And I think Doris Stokes' books are very good to read as well. You can
Not for the development of mediumship.
No, but they're very good to give you insight, talking about her spirit guides and how she came into it and everything, and how she set in circle and developed, and her husband was a healer. And I think they're very, very good down-to-earth books. I
think you'd probably find other stuff on the spiritualists' website, such as snu.org.uk. I think they've got a listing of a number of the traditional, original sort of teachings books of spiritualism.
Yeah. Now, Kay Wood, please, Craig and Jane, why so many heart issues happening? My boss had 3 cardiac arrests, and each time took him to rehab, keeping statement, praying to God. Well, 3 is quite a lot, isn't it? It's obviously a warning, and things don't necessarily mean because someone's going to reassess they're going to die, and prayers do go out. The more positive energy and sending love and doing visualization will help this guy.
Yeah, and I think at this time of year there's a higher death rate
seem to
just
be
after
hearts.
Christmas, particularly from heart. At this time of year, more people die in January and February, I believe, statistically, than any other time of the year, and presumably heart issues must be high on the agenda during this time, because we've all had stressful periods sometimes, the build up for Christmas, and people keep pushing themselves to get through Christmas, and they get through Christmas and then it hits them afterwards.
Right. Ingrid, all this heart problems, does it has to do the vaccination? Well, we're not doctors, so we can't really say that. And I'm a great believer, if you're meant to have all these different things, it's all karmic. And that
I'm always a bit cautious talking about vaccine type
so
stuff, particularly on YouTube, because they ban your channel with that type of thing. It's something that I think it's very, very hard, I think, for people that to debate without medically qualified people around us. I mean, these things there's many unknowns with this. It's still everything has been launched without long periods of testing. So there's all sorts of questions. It could be, it could not. But I can't. I'm not going to pin my
so we're not doctors, Craig,
opinion
so
to the mast with this, because I'm not qualified really on that.
Biologist. Next
I
question.
know we worry about people. We don't know who to believe nowadays because so much gets covered up.
Right, Apple. I'm an interview. Lisa Marie praised the actor who played Elvis. That's right. In a recent film, she said his performance was very like Elvis. Do you think he channeled Elvis? No, I think what he done, he rehearsed Elvis Presley. He was an actor, so it doesn't mean he channeled him. He's not a medium. It's as if when these actors, they've got to study, then they have an understudy, and they have to pick up and mimic them and things like that. I don't feel that Elvis was channeled through him.
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, maybe when you do deeply get involved in trying to project a character and so deeply inwardly trying to
we actually
connect
saw the
with it,
film.
it wouldn't surprise you could connect.
We saw the
as
film,
an actor.
Craig. We went to see that
film. Yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
And he was very, very good.
Brilliant.
Played a good part, very convincing. But I don't feel for one moment that he's a medium and channeled Elvis.
Yeah, but it certainly got very close to the qualities of the man.
Yeah.
Incredibly brilliant it was too. Roy, you born to be special like Elvis was? Are you? Yeah. Sorry, you got an extra Y. Are you born to be special like Elvis? Yeah, I think some people are singled out by destiny. Sometimes, you know, I think that is the way it is with the world.
Yeah.
That sometimes you come into this world and you have a special destiny, and it's something that I think mediumship is a bit like that. To be honest, I think I never really wanted to be a medium. I wasn't someone that sat in a spiritualist church thinking, oh, I'd love to be up there doing that. I mean, I'd never been in a spiritualist church. Same for Jane. I think you're just drawn into this, and I had no expectation to be it, and you were, and I felt that was a destiny. And I think the same thing, there's a calling like that in many people's lives in many different areas. It might not be necessary doing something famous like Elvis or so public. Sometimes there's something in your life that has just said, I've got to be a nurse, or I've got to be an artist, or I've got to do something. And it's something that goes beyond just what I want to do. It's something you have to do because it's a daemon, it's a calling, it's something that is bigger than you. So yes, I would say definitely Elvis and people of his caliber are definitely drawn by something much bigger than themselves. Perhaps in past lives even.
Elvis was very spiritual. Yes, I believe he was very religious and very spiritual. And I know he used to send his thoughts and prayers up to his mother, because he was very close to his mother and everything. And I just felt that and of course, what people don't realise, he did give a lot of money to handicapped children, Craig.
Yeah.
He did want to do good for disabled children. So there's very good spiritual values that he had.
And his style of singing was modelled really on gospel singing. He was a white gospel singer.
Come to think of it, the very first record I bought, and this is really dating me, Elvis, was Wooden Hearts. I can remember I used to go shopping for my granny, and I spent all my money on Elvis Presley records, Wooden Hearts.
I
and they
even
had
bought one.
record. Do you remember they had record booths? You used to have to go and listen to them.
You'd listen to it, yeah. I mean, the first one I bought with now was It's All in the Game, and I think that's quite a good. That's quite a good song actually, because it kind of expresses what the world is. You know, the world is a game. The world's a game.
Old
Play
Shep.
it.
Do you remember the record Old Shep?
Yeah. I mean, Elvis's stuff is fabulous.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and he's someone whose music is still as good now as it ever was.
He's sung with passion, didn't
Yeah.
he? Sung with passion. Yeah. Right. Next question.
We need more good singers. We have Spotify and the rest of it's kind of destroy the opportunities for new artists to appear. Need to put a big Q when you can, Witchy, if you can, then we can pick up on questions. Was Lisa Johnson the real daughter of Elvis Presley, as she claims in her book?
I don't even know who she is. Do
No,
you?
I don't know.
Well, I don't think we can
I've
answer
heard
that.
of the story, but I don't know enough about it to be able
No.
to comment actually on that one, Witchy. Thanks. And if you got some comments, do put some comments, and put some comments below on these type of things. You know, what do you think? What's your thoughts about that? I wonder if Elvis has been reincarnated.
I think he's in India at the moment.
I don't think so, actually.
Well, I think his life's been completed on the earth plane, and he brought a lot of pleasure to people, didn't he, through his music, lots of love, and you know, he's known worldwide, isn't he, Elvis Presley? There'll never be another Elvis Presley.
I think people don't reincarnate that quickly usually. I think people sometimes reincarnate quickly if there's been some tragedy that they're still grasping onto the earth, that something needs sorting out and they don't want to let go. But my thoughts are that when we go to the spirit world, we gather together in the spirit world until all those people in our group soul have come together, and then we spend some time in the spirit and then incarnate again together to reconnect, and we would meet those people we love again in a future time. So time is needed before the group soul can reincarnate a second time. So I would have said in my opinion, you can't prove this is pure speculation, but in my opinion, I would have thought he would not have reincarnated. Just the way I generally feel about this. So don't forget, guys, if you put a Q and ask your questions. Makes it much easier for Matt to pick up on your questions when you ask something. And we can try to do this every time we go live. It would be great.
Right, Joanne, question. Have you both been to Graceland, or would you ever go? I've never been to Graceland. Would I go? Well, it depends if Craig's paying for me.
Yeah, I like to do a musical tour of America. Actually, that would be pretty good. Go to the important musical sites in New York and around there, and then go all through the.
Oh, you'd like New Orleans?
And
Voodoo and all that.
I'd love that. That would make a great holiday.
Yeah.
But no, we haven't, sadly. But I'd like to go there. I reckon we went to see Liberace's stuff. Didn't
we went to his house actually, in his museum, and they've destroyed it now. It's not there in Las Vegas. And he did like beautiful things, and he had an image of St. Anthony that was carved of a saint, and he used to have that at the end of his bed. He was quite religious.
Yeah, I was a great fan of Liberace.
I liked his humour. I like anybody with humour.
He had a lot of beliefs in that he was guided by the spirit of Franz Liszt.
And St. Anthony.
Yeah, and St. Anthony. But he felt that he might, I don't know if he said he was the reincarnation of Franz Liszt. And actually, and even, Elvis had a lot of interest in classical music, believe it or not, too. People didn't know that.
Yeah.
And he I think it was Liszt again that he was interested. He liked Mozart, apparently, Elvis did. Yeah, apparently so.
Right, next question. Angela. Is Lisa Marie at peace now? Was she ready to go? Well, nobody can predict death. That's a certainty. It's in God's hands. But obviously it was her time to go. Otherwise she would still be in here. And one hopes that when she went peacefully and beautifully, and her loved ones comfort her. That's all. I think people worry how they're going to die. That's what the most people worry about.
I think she went prematurely, actually. But
well, it must have been her time. She wouldn't have gone.
But then I suppose ultimately it is your time. I suppose it depends. We can fight a bit longer to live longer than we're meant to, I think.
Well, but I read today they're working on that people can live longer. There's a special gene and things that they're saying that people can live hundreds of years. Would you really want to live hundreds of years?
I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind living 200 years. I don't think I'd like to live more than that.
You wouldn't want to be all wrinkled up though and be 200 years old. You'd like to be 18 again, wouldn't you, Craig?
What I'd like is eternal recurrence, but in reverse. So we get to this point, and every day I just get a little bit younger, until I get to about 18, and then it can go back the other way again, And that would be quite a nice lifestyle. So I keep the wisdom, and you have all. They say that youth is wasted on the young. And I think that is the case.
Right.
So thanks for the questions, guys. Don't forget, put a Q in front of your questions. Got any comments? Got any thoughts about these things? Are you an Elvis fan? Have you been to any of these bases? Do you know any other ghost stories about Elvis and things like that too? Because that's all very interesting.
Right, Vicky's saying, after we die, do we have a choice to not reincarnate? I think it depends on your lessons from previous incarnations and what you've done here on the earth plane, the physical world. She's saying, I don't really want to come back to this earth. I think it depends what you do in this life. If you do good things, you're gathering good karma.
I think your ability to not reincarnate is dependent upon how spiritually advanced you are.
That's right.
That's what liberation is, you see. I believe the cycle of birth, death and rebirth goes on, and most people are drawn into the cycle of death and rebirth all the time. We're stuck in that cycle. But that's where the spiritual work comes in. When we do our spiritual work, we gradually get to the point that we have more control over our destiny. We have more, we're not forced to have to do things in the same way others might be, because we learn to become, as we become awakened and we become more awake, we don't need to learn the lessons of earth so much, and we would carry on in higher planes, ultimately to escape all birth and rebirth in all planes of existence. And that's why we need to look at this world and see it as a place where we develop and learn, and not to reject it and not want to come back. I think we have to kind of embrace the fact that it's through suffering that we grow, we learn, we become awake. Without that, we can't advance. We don't advance quickly in the spirit world. We advance quickly here on earth.
Ginger tea. Do you think the grief of losing Lisa Marie will shorten Priscilla's life? Well, we don't want to predict anybody's death, do we? But it must be a state of shock when you've lost a child, and it can cause heart attacks and strokes.
Yeah, nothing like losing a child is for stress.
But then I feel this lady's quite a strong lady. She's had to be in her life, and she'd want to be there for her grandchildren. So that might give her a reason that they all come together. Because you find that when people lose someone, especially a child, people become closer and supported.
It's sad sometimes that certain families and certain famous personalities, so much tragedy is attracted around that in some ways, isn't it? I mean, there's been a lot of tragedy in the whole Elvis story, really. I mean, Elvis died far too young, 42 I think he was when he died,
in his
wasn't
40s.
he? 42 I think he was, something like that. I mean,
heart attack,
so many sad
again,
things. Yeah.
due to drugs.
And with success comes all these other horrible things. It's a shame they can't have all the good stuff as well, but
look,
perhaps just
Eric
the way
Clapton
it is.
lost a little boy who fell out a top story window and died, so he had tragedy.
Yeah, I mean,
so many famous and rich people have
have
tragedies.
Yeah, and so I suppose that's part and parcel of life, isn't it? But wouldn't say, you can't say, oh, it will shorten her life.
No.
I mean, I think stress for all of us could shorten our life, but then, you know, sometimes you can go if you're a spiritually strong person, you can throw all sorts at you and you still go on and live a long time because you've transcended those
Lisa
things.
Marie, because her late son died 2 years ago, and the grieving process is going to be there for her, especially birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries, and it's going to be hard. And I expect she had a lot to deal with, and it didn't help really, because I believe she did suffer with depression as well, Craig.
Yeah. As her son I mean, a lot of very creative people often have to carry depression with them, particularly comedians. Actually, I mean, there's lots of cases of the comics that the sad clown sort of thing. You know, I think it's the intensity of the lifestyle that you lead. You know, I think that intensity. There's never a chance to be balanced, so you burn yourself out on deep spiritual levels. You know, performing generally. So we're getting close. Gosh,
that's gone quick, isn't it, Craig?
By tonight, isn't it? Yeah. So let's have your last questions. And just once again, let me remind you that if you subscribe, it helps the channel. If you give it a like, it helps the channel. And if you have a look in the description below and consider becoming a patron, it would be fantastic, because that helps keep this all going and helps us to keep the studio going and makes it possible. We don't take a penny out of this. We do this tonight out of the love of it. We enjoy doing it. Yeah, it's tiring some Friday nights to think, oh, we could go to the cinema. Nope, we got the show on tonight. So we put our bit in. Can you do your little bit? It would be very grateful if you could be a patron.
We wouldn't do it if we didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, we love it, and then we would do it. We would do it even if we were dropping on our feet, wouldn't we? Isn't it? In fact, just to say, before I answer the next question, we will be offline actually for the Friday show for a few things. I've got something coming up we've got to do that will be very interesting later on, which I can't talk about. But so we will be offline some Fridays.
About 4 weeks.
Between 2 to 4 weeks, possibly, but probably 2 weeks, I expect. Depends how it goes. But it'll be very interesting, which we can tell you about later in the year. But fabulous stuff. But anyway, so sorry to those. I'll try to put a few pre-records up of things in the coming weeks, but you know, we're going to be a little bit tripped up. And also to the patrons, sorry to the patrons too. I'm going to be off air for a little bit. But Jane will still be around, but we don't know quite what we can get out on the
because you can always look on my YouTube channel, Medium Jane Hamilton Parker, because when I get inspired and I have things that come from me from the higher realms, then I do talks and you can connect with me on there. Yeah, and all our channels are also on the website, psychics.co.uk. You can see there, and you can see Jane's channel on there, all of the channels. But it will get in the description as well. Click on the description, Jane's channel's in there as well. So, Claire's saying, my granddad passed a week before I had a reading off Jane, and she told me he had come with me to the reading. She knew things I didn't even know, which I later got confirmed. That's good. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, because, where the need is great and the love and the two worlds meet together, then it's absolutely a privilege that they come through. And it's the same like that poor girl or woman, Lisa Marie. I hope that from the other side they're sending healing out to her family and to her loved ones left behind. And we wish that all of you just send your thoughts out to that poor lady that's left behind, that she gets great comfort from others.
Yeah, and thank you, Claire, for putting a testimonial up like
thank
that.
you.
That's always nice because
you can come again, Claire.
you're giving a discount, Jane.
I would.
Question: who chooses which loved ones greet us? Do you think we have any part in who comes?
Well, it depends on
love chooses.
Yeah, and the connection
Simple.
that's strong.
Love chooses.
I mean, it's like sometimes these Hollywood producers saying, we're going to have John Lennon. Do you think he can bring through to a fan? It doesn't work like that, does it,
yeah,
Craig?
one of the things they say, you can't summon a spirit. It's one of the things we're taught in spiritualism. You can't summon a spirit. You can't say, I want Elvis to come through. You can't say, I want my father to come through, or I want so-and-so to come through. You have to, when you visit a medium, you have to go hoping, but you can't pull. And in fact, the more, if you're, when you're doing a reading for someone and someone's determined that they must have this person through, it can actually act as a bit of a block, because sometimes the person that will come through might be, say, a grandma that's been over there a bit longer, that's more familiar with the ropes, and is not such an emotionally intense connection as, say, a child that's just been lost. And that will help build the connection with spirit. So when you see a medium, you need to be grateful for what comes through. If you get any evidence from the spirit world, real proof and evidence, it's the most valuable thing there is. I think that proof of life after death, that proof of the nature of reality. But you can never be sure who's going to come through. You can't pull a person, so no one chooses who's going to greet us either from the spirit world. Although your question's a little bit different, but but I think that the bond of love is what it makes it all work. It's a bridge of love between the two worlds, isn't it? Right, I think, yes, we are coming to the end now. So that's
patrons,
it.
Craig.
And thank you, guys. Don't forget, that was our last questions for tonight. And don't forget, have a look in that description. Become a patron. Keep following our channel, because we've got lots of stuff. We're always trying to come up with new ideas and new stuff. Any thoughts you'd like us to do on this show or future shows, please also put that in the comments below afterwards, because we do go through and read all the comments. We can't answer everybody, but everything does get looked at and everything gets noted, and we are very interested in your input too, of where you want to see our show go, what you'd like us to do. We're going to be off air for a couple of weeks or more, but keep putting your questions, and maybe there's something you'd like us to address when we go next live.
But our spirits will still be on the earth. Hopefully.
So thanks for joining us, folks. We're going to say bye now.
Yes.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Ciao.